Okay, you've really sent us a lot on this one.
Mike's Waffenfacts, huh?
Yeah, Mike's Waffenfacts.
It's something else.
It's definitely not NPR just going by these forum threads and articles and even some attempted scripts of the show.
Yeah, it seems like someone out there really wants to understand this podcast like they're trying to crack a code.
It is kind of like podcast anthropology, right?
Right.
We need to piece together who these hosts are, what they're all about, and what the recurring themes and ideas are in the show.
Yeah, like what is the Mike's Waffenfacts extended universe?
Yeah, exactly. And one thing that pops up over and over again in these sources is this Schwatten character.
Oh, yeah, you sent over a whole forum thread dedicated to just him.
Yeah, who is this guy?
Yeah, and why is he such a legend in the Mike's Waffenfacts world?
Right. So, before we get lost in that mystery, maybe we should start by grounding ourselves with the hosts themselves. Like, who are Mike and Rickard?
Yeah, let's unpack those two.
Okay, so Mike's the ringleader, and he's clearly obsessed with anything military or weapons or anything that goes boom.
Right? He loves to talk about stuff that makes a big kaboom.
Yeah, one article even called him Grobschlächtiger, which basically means rough around the edges.
He seems like a real character,
Yeah.
but there's more to him than just explosions.
Yeah.
He's also a really engaging storyteller.
Yeah, the sources all highlight his storytelling. It's not just what he's talking about, it's how he talks about it.
He takes these dry facts and turns them into these big, elaborate stories.
Yeah, always with a ton of crude humor thrown in for good measure.
He's got jokes for days.
Oh, and we can't forget the beer.
Or something stronger, right?
Yeah, right? A lot of the sources mention them drinking a lot while they record.
Which makes you wonder how much of what they're saying is actually how they feel and how much is just the alcohol talking.
Right? Like, is it liquid courage fueling those wild stories?
Or is it just an excuse to say really offensive things and then say, oh, I was just drunk?
Yeah, speaking of offensive, let's talk about Rickard.
Yeah. Mike's psychic.
Yeah, but he's also like the resident conspiracy theorist, always ready to jump in with a hot take about some hidden agenda.
And those arguments seem to get pretty heated when the drinks are flowing.
They do, like a lot of the sources mention him getting really worked up, especially when he's had a few.
Which is kind of the opposite of Mike's more laid-back, just telling stories vibe.
Yeah, they're like the podcast equivalent of fire and gasoline.
You never know when they're going to explode.
And then there's Ramonka, the sound engineer.
Yeah, the long-suffering sound engineer.
He always seems to be the butt of their jokes.
He's like the audience stand-in.
Yeah, like he's both fascinated and horrified by what's going on.
He loves his black metal and drumming, though.
Which they just make fun of constantly.
So we've got this trio, Mike, the weapons-obsessed storyteller, Rickard, the conspiracy theorist who's ready to argue about anything,
Yeah.
and then Ramonka, the metalhead, just trying to keep the whole recording from going off the rails.
Yeah, what kind of atmosphere does that create?
It's got to be wild.
What's the vibe of Mike's Waffenfacts?
I mean, the sources are pretty consistent in describing it as politically incorrect.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
They've got strong opinions, and they're not afraid to offend people. And then you add the alcohol into the mix, and it's like anything goes.
It's this bizarre blend of dark humor, military jargon, and tangents that come out of nowhere.
They go down some serious rabbit holes.
Yeah, one forum post even mentioned a lost episode about paranormal phenomena that never got released.
Really?
Yeah, it supposedly got too scary.
Wow, even for these guys, that's pretty wild.
Right, which makes you wonder how much of this is a performance,
Yeah, are they playing up these personalities for this show?
Are they really that outrageous?
Or are they just putting on an act for their listeners?
It's probably a bit of both, right?
Yeah, I'm sure it's more complicated than that.
So let's dive into some of those recurring themes and inside jokes that you highlighted in your research.
Okay, sounds good.
Let's start with the Schwatten mystery. Who is this guy, and why is he constantly mentioned?
He's everywhere. Sometimes it's just a quick shout out. Other times he's like a character in one of Mike's stories.
Yeah, it's like he's this inside joke between the hosts and the most dedicated fans.
Yeah, like if you know, you know.
Yeah, one theory I saw is that Schwatten might be a composite character.
A composite character?
Yeah, representing their ideal listener, like he embodies everything they love about their audience.
That's interesting. It would explain why he pops up in so many different contexts.
And speaking of symbolic figures, we have to talk about Mike's dad, Gasbold.
Oh yeah, this guy's a legend.
He seems to be the source of every bad life lesson and crazy story that Mike tells.
He's like Mike's personal Yoda, but instead of wisdom, he's handing out terrible advice and tall tales.
Yeah, and he embodies this hyper-masculine, take-no-prisoners worldview that seems to inform a lot of Mike's opinions.
It's like Mike's constantly saying, well, my dad always said, and then it's something totally insane.
Right. But it adds another layer to this whole performance versus authenticity question.
Yeah, is Gasbold even a real person?
Or is he just another character in the Mike's Waffenfacts universe?
He might be completely made up.
We might never know.
Yeah, okay, now we have to address the elephant in the room.
Or should we say the Arschbaum in the pool?
Oh, yeah. You flagged this as a recurring topic.
Yeah. And I have to admit, I'm a little nervous about what it means in the context of this show.
I mean, it's just a cannonball.
Right. But the way they talk about it, it seems like it's more than just a silly jump into the water.
Yeah, it's like a metaphor for this reckless energy that the show has.
They even bring it up when they're talking about serious stuff like international law.
Which is just bizarre.
It's like they're trying to be shocking.
Yeah, but why?
Is it just for laughs, or is there something deeper going on?
That's a good question.
And speaking of controversial topics, you highlighted Mike's apparent admiration for certain dictators.
Oh, yeah, he loves talking about guys like Napoleon and Stalin.
Yeah, often praising their leadership qualities.
Yeah, which is a little unsettling.
It's like, is this dark humor? Is he trying to provoke people, or does he actually have some messed up views?
It's hard to say. The sources don't really give us a clear answer.
Even if it's a joke, it's risky territory.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
It makes you think about the responsibility that content creators have.
Yeah, like, do they have an obligation to consider the impact of their words, even if they're trying to be entertaining?
Which brings us back to the audience. Who are these people tuning in to Mike's Waffenfacts every week? What are they getting out of it?
Yeah. What are they drawn to, and what messages are they taking away from this chaotic mix of dark humor, conspiracy theories, and potentially dangerous ideas?
It's a good question.
Yeah, that is the big question. The sources you sent do give us some glimpses into the fan base, but it's hard to say for sure.
Yeah, we know for sure that they're out there, though.
Oh, definitely.
Some of these forum threads you sent had hundreds of posts. People dissecting every episode, debating theories. They even have their own fan art.
They really are dedicated.
Yeah, and they've got their own inside lingo, too.
Like Schwatten.
Yeah, exactly. Schwatten's just the tip of the iceberg.
It does seem like a pretty tight-knit community.
It does, yeah. People who are really invested in this world that Mike and Rickard have created.
So who are these people demographically? I mean, you mentioned an assumption that they're mostly male, given all the talk about weapons and that Gasbold character.
Yeah, that's what I thought, too, at first.
Yeah.
But there was that article about the Arschbomben incident. And the author, who was a fan of the show, said that the appeal is broader than just a boys' club.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, they argued that the irony and the over-the-top nature of it all could also appeal to people who find this kind of masculinity absurd.
Yeah, like it becomes a commentary on that kind of behavior.
Right. It's a way to laugh at how ridiculous it is.
So maybe the audience is more diverse than we think.
Yeah, maybe it's people who are just drawn to the humor and the unpredictability of it all.
Yeah, you never know what's going to happen next. Like a train wreck you can't look away from.
Exactly. But is there a danger in making this kind of extreme content so entertaining?
That's a good point.
Does it normalize this reckless behavior and these harmful ideas, even if it's not meant to be taken seriously?
That is a big question, and there's no easy answer.
Yeah, the sources we have are pretty divided on this.
What do they say?
Some people say that it's all in good fun and that listeners are smart enough to know the difference between what's real and what's just for show.
Right.
But other people worry that constantly being exposed to this kind of rhetoric, even ironically, can make people less sensitive to it.
Yeah, it's like that debate about comedians who push the boundaries of good taste.
Right. Where's the line between satire and just being offensive?
Exactly. And where's the line between entertainment and actually causing harm?
And how much responsibility do creators have to think about the potential consequences of their work, even if they're just trying to make people laugh?
These are big questions.
Yeah, they're questions that go way beyond just Mike's Waffenfacts.
Yeah, it's a much bigger cultural conversation about free speech and artistic expression and the power of meat.
Okay, before we get too philosophical, I want to go back to something that's been bugging me.
What's that?
That lost paranormal episode.
Oh, yeah.
You said one source called it catastrophic.
Yeah, very disturbing, supposedly.
What exactly happened during that recording?
It's tough to say for sure. The details are pretty scarce.
What do we know?
Well, there's a forum post from someone claiming to have inside knowledge.
Okay.
And they mentioned a video recording that supposedly captured the events, but the episode itself was never released, and the video was never surfaced.
Wait, so you're saying there's a chance something really bad happened during the recording?
It's possible. I guess we'll never know for sure.
Okay, now I really need to know more about this.
It's like a ghost story for the podcasting world, We have these little hints and rumors,
Yeah.
but no concrete evidence.
Right. Did they pick up weird noises on the microphones? Were they acting strange on the video, or was it all just an elaborate hoax to get people talking about the show?
Who knows? It could be anything.
That's what makes it so intriguing.
We're left to fill in the blanks ourselves.
Well, which is probably what Mike and Rickard wanted all along.
Exactly. They're masters of keeping people guessing.
Speaking of keeping people guessing, what about this Congo Muller guy? Who is he really?
Ah, the Congo Miller.
Yeah, he's this mysterious figure in Mike's stories, like some kind of jungle survival expert who's always getting into these crazy situations.
He sounds like a real character.
He does, but you hinted that he might not even be a real person.
Yeah, that's right.
Really?
A lot of sources, including one podcast review that called him a figment of Mike's drunken imagination, suggest that he's just a character that Mike made up.
So if he's made up, why create him? What purpose does he serve in the Mike's Waffenfacts universe?
Well, I think it goes back to that wish fulfillment aspect we talked about earlier.
Mm-hmm.
The Congo Miller is like this romanticized ideal of masculinity. He's resourceful, fearless. He can survive anywhere. He's like a modern-day folk hero.
Yeah, I can see that.
He represents a simpler time when men were men and danger was just another adventure.
And that resonates with certain people, especially those who are disillusioned with modern society.
Exactly. They see the Congo Miller and they think, that's how I want to be.
So it's like they're escaping into this fantasy world.
Yeah, even if it's not real, it's a way to escape from the anxieties and pressures of everyday life.
So we're dealing with a show that operates on multiple levels. There's the surface level with the jokes and the outrageous stories and the over-the-top personalities.
Right?
But then there's this deeper level where they're tapping into these larger cultural anxieties and desires.
Exactly. And that's what makes Mike's Waffenfacts more than just a podcast.
Yeah.
It's a reflection of our times.
It's like holding up a mirror to our culture.
Exactly. And what we see reflected back at us is both beautiful and ugly.
So why should we care about this podcast? What can we learn from dissecting its themes and characters and impact on the audience?
By understanding Mike's Waffenfacts, I think we can gain insights into some of the bigger trends that are happening in our culture. Like this nostalgia for a simpler past, this anxiety about the future, and how those things can lead to some pretty extreme ideologies and behaviors.
And we see how entertainment can be used to both reinforce and challenge traditional ideas about masculinity.
Yeah, and how the line between irony and endorsement can get really blurry.
We also see how the desire for community and belonging can lead people to embrace conspiracy theories and reject facts and evidence.
It's a lot to unpack.
It is, yeah. And I think the biggest takeaway is that we need to be more critical of the media we consume.
We need to question our assumptions and look for different perspectives.
And we need to remember that even something as seemingly harmless as a podcast can have a profound impact on how we see the world.
Absolutely. Mike's Waffenfacts is a microcosm of our cultural landscape. It's messy, chaotic, unsettling, but it's also incredibly revealing.
So what do you think? What other insights have you gotten from our deep dive so far?
I think the most striking thing is the power of ambiguity. Mike and Rickard have created this world where nothing is certain. The lines between reality and fiction are constantly blurred, and that's what draws people in.
It's like a Rorschach test for their audience.
Exactly. People can project their own interpretations and anxieties onto the show.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground.
We have.
But there's still one thing I can't stop thinking about.
What's that?
That Lost Paranormal episode.
Oh, yeah.
I know we don't have a lot to go on, but
Yeah.
is there anything else we can glean from the sources you've gathered that might shed some light on what happened?
Well, the forum post that mentions the video recording uses some interesting language. They describe the events as subtle, but ultimately catastrophic.
Catastrophic.
Yeah, and they use the word verstörend over and over again, which means disturbing or unsettling.
This is starting to sound less like a podcast and more like a horror movie.
It definitely adds a creepy element to this whole thing.
Yeah.
But without the episode or the video, we're just left to speculate.
Did they hear strange noises? Did they start acting weird, or was it all just a publicity stunt?
We might never know.
Part of me hopes it was real, that something genuinely disturbing happened.
It would definitely make the story even more intriguing.
But whether it's real or fake, the fact that people are still talking about it just shows how powerful Mike's Waffenfacts is.
It sticks with you. It makes you think. It makes you question everything.
And that's what makes it such a perfect subject for a deep dive.
It's more than just entertainment. It's a cultural artifact that deserves to be examined and analyzed. It really is like peeling back the layers of an onion.
Right. And speaking of layers, we keep coming back to this question of, are they putting on an act or are they really like this?
Yeah, performance versus authenticity.
Yeah, are Mike and Rick are just playing characters, or are they being their true selves?
I think it's a bit of both, to be honest.
You do.
Yeah. I think there's definitely a conscious effort to create these personas, to exaggerate certain aspects of their personalities for the sake of entertainment. But I also think there's some truth to it. They're not just actors reading lines.
Right, they're bringing their own experiences and beliefs to the show.
Yeah, it's like a heightened version of reality.
Like they're taking these parts of themselves and amplifying them.
Exactly. And that blurriness that makes it so hard to tell what's real and what's fake, that's part of what makes it so fascinating.
Yeah, it's like they're challenging us to figure them out.
Right. Like, can you crack the code?
So going back to what we said at the beginning, if we were to analyze Mike's Waffenfacts, like cultural anthropologists, what would it tell us about our society?
What are the big takeaways?
Yeah, like what are the underlying anxieties and fascinations that are driving this whole thing?
Well, one thing that's really clear is this fascination with weapons and survivalism.
Right. Mike's always talking about guns and prepping for the apocalypse.
Yeah, it's like they're tapping into this fear of societal collapse, this anxiety about the future.
Yeah, and that fear is definitely out there. It's in the news,
Yeah.
it's in movies, it's everywhere.
It's a sign of the times, for sure.
And then there's the whole masculinity thing.
Right, the way they glorify this aggressive, over-the-top macho attitude.
Yeah, it's like they're taking traditional ideas about what it means to be a man and turning them into a caricature.
And it's interesting because it's both appealing and repulsive at the same time.
Yeah, you're not sure whether to laugh at it or be disgusted by it.
It makes you question your own ideas about gender
Yeah.
and what it means to be masculine.
And we can't forget about the conspiracy theories.
Oh, yeah. Brickard's a walking encyclopedia of conspiracy theories,
It's like he sees a hidden agenda behind everything.
which taps into this deep-seated distrust of authority that a lot of people feel.
Right, like the government is lying to us, the media is lying to us, everyone's lying to us.
And that distrust is only getting worse in today's world, where we're constantly bombarded with information from all sides.
Yeah, it's hard to know what to believe anymore.
Conspiracy theories offer a way to make sense of all the chaos.
They provide a simple explanation for complex events.
Exactly, and they create a sense of community, a feeling of belonging to a group of people who are in the know.
So Mike's Waffenfacts becomes this safe space for people who share those beliefs.
Yeah, it's like a support group for conspiracy theorists.
So what have we learned from all this?
I think the biggest lesson is that we're all shaped by the culture we live in. Our beliefs, our fears, our desires, they're all influenced by the world around us.
Right. And media plays a huge role in shaping that world.
We need to be more aware of how media is affecting us.
We need to be critical thinkers.
We need to question everything.
And we need to remember that even something as seemingly harmless as a podcast can have a profound impact on how we see the world.
Mike's Waffenfacts is a perfect example of that.
It's a reflection of our culture, warts and all.
It's messy, chaotic, unsettling, but it's also incredibly revealing.
So we encourage you to keep thinking about these ideas.
What are your thoughts on Mike's Waffenfacts?
What insights have you gleaned from our analysis?
Share your reflections with us, and let's continue this conversation.
And until next time, keep questioning, keep exploring, and keep diving deep